Political appointees, I'm not sure what you mean.
So we've had we've had interim appointees with vacancies. And so this way.
Political appointees to council
So
or
if
to.
we have,
Okay.
so if we basically retain, and that was the transparency that it would basically say that we're going to have, it's okay for us to do this, but we would add that to any other.
Second to that motion? Seeing none, would the council like to take up recommendation 17?
Yes. Let's open the roll on this item, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
All right, what's next? We have item number 20.
No,
Or
item
did we-
20 has been disposed
Oh,
of.
we did that one? Okay.
Next will be item number 22 and 23.
Called special by council members McCosker and Rodriguez.
All right. Councilmember McCosker.
Thank you very much. I just want to begin by asking the meet and confer question. We have received, as we said before, we received a letter from the non-sworn personnel, and we responded to those concerns. And I believe we have a letter or communications from the sworn personnel representative group, and I want to, understand the nature of the meet and confer process, how it was executed, and what can lawfully be in front of us today among the police reform proposals.
So as it relates to those that are that remain in front of you today, there were invitations to bargain made on multiple occasions, including after the release of the Charter Commission's report. That report was sent to all employee representatives with an invitation to bargain on any issue that they felt was important to them. As it relates to the specific issues in front of you, I believe 58 was sent to committee. Is that correct? The CRC 58 was sent, right?
Yes.
So the remaining issues, our position is that those are matters of policy within the jurisdiction of this body. And although we did invite the employee representatives in this case to bargain on and to comment on these issues as they were included in the charter reform report, we don't believe that was required.
Not for here. Thank you. I want to be clear. The communication that we received indicated that there was an invitation to bargain, and that invitation to bargain was accompanied by the range of issues that were being presented at that time at each invitation. And I don't believe any of those included any police-related amendments. And that's how I understand it. If I have that wrong, I have that wrong. So does an invitation to bargain and with a list of here are the things that we are considering right now, but none of which were police issues, does that mean that if the police representatives don't respond, then they have refused to bargain? Because it appears to me that there was nothing presented to them that fit within the hours and working conditions and wages of sworn officers. And so my contention would be that's not a refusal to bargain, that's not even bargaining.
And I do want to make a clarification. Because the issues are wide-ranging, that were wide-ranging in the Charter Commission's report, the invitation was to discuss any of these issues. Whether it triggered a meet and confer requirement, some of them that directly related to hours, wages, working conditions clearly involve a meet and confer requirement. For example, the discussions that we just had regarding the civil service reform. Our position was that those items did not require bargaining. We nonetheless invited them to discuss, as it was included in the report. Anything further on this, though, Councilman? Because we have received a number of indications, letters that there may be litigation around this, I would refer to the city attorney, and I think it would be appropriate to have this discussion in closed session.
Okay, we're on item 22. I gather that what you just said is that item 22 in the CAO's estimation, as the management bargaining representative, you would say that that does not come into Myers-Milius-Brown and is not something that you are required to negotiate.
Our position is that the council can proceed with that item.
Mr. President, if this item moves forward, I'm going to also ask that we get a confidential city attorney analysis of that very question for this item and have it join the matter as the language comes forward. As you said at the head of this meeting, we will have the next step would be for us to review language and approve to put it on the ballot. I want to see, I think it's only fair and it's responsive to the potential of litigation to have that confidential city attorney information presented to us so that we can make a final decision then.
Is there a
All right.
second to that motion?
Councilmember Soto Martinez seconds. Any other comments before we go to discussion on these items? Councilmember Blumenfield.
I feel like we have a history in this city. We have been able to do police reform and bring it to the ballot, but we usually have a lot more discussion about it. I mean, I feel like these are some important issues, and especially if we want something to pass at the ballot, we really should have a more vetted process. And so I would like to see these topics actually discussed in council, and I'd like to have the police chief here to hear what they have to say and to hear what the unions have to say, and also to hear what the community has to say on this. This has not been vetted, in my view, although this is, I mean, my inclination is actually very much in line with what is being put out here. I don't think it's a smart way for us to go about it. I feel like we should hear these things out, do police reform as a charter issue, but not just kind of shoehorning it in here. It doesn't feel right, and it doesn't feel smart. Like we're going to end up with a big campaign. It's not going to, may or may not pass, but it's the kind of thing that we could actually have a discussion about and get to somewhere where we could get something on the ballot that would actually pass and be embraced by a lot more people. So I'm not really comfortable voting yes for it at this time, even though that is not the same as being against the ideas behind it.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenfield. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to caution everybody, all of my colleagues, that Los Angeles has spent more than 3 decades reforming, professionalizing, and strengthening accountability within the LAPD. Following the Christopher Commission, the federal consent decree era, and during that time, the city has seen meaningful progress that should not be overlooked. The LAPD of 2026 is, like I said in committee, not the LAPD of the early 1990s. Crime is at historic lows, expanded constitutional policing standards, increased transparency, enhanced training and oversight, and a substantially more diverse force that better reflects the communities that serve. We should always be striving to be better, but I just want to caution that the city, be cautious about fundamentally altering longstanding guardrails governing LAPD, and not just because, a few council members are upset that those safeguards are put in place that don't allow them to politicize this process. This is exactly the reason we have a Citizens Oversight Committee. And the key question is not whether accountability is important, because of course it is. It's whether these proposed governance changes will actually improve accountability without creating unintended consequences that weakens the very oversight structure that the city has spent decades building. So, colleagues, I warn you against this. Citizens Oversight was put in place exactly to keep us out of politicizing the LAPD. So before we move on any of these sweeping changes, let's make sure, let's understand councils change. You may not like the direction another council has, and that's exactly the reason that we put in these safeguards and we have a Citizens Oversight Committee to make sure that we don't meddle in policy or different decision-making of the LAPD. So I encourage a no vote on this.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Council President, I wish it was that simple to just not say that this is politicized when it is 100% politicized. Right now, the only entities that have real say in how LAPD moves is the mayor and the mayor-appointed body, which is the Board of Police Commissioners. And some neighborhoods, policing is still like the 1990s. It might not be happening like that in all parts of the city, but I can point to it where it's happening in my district. And last year, when the federal immigration raids were at their highest, when we saw countless videos and pictures of LAPD standing and facing the crowd while ICE agents were picking up women up off their feet in downtown and throwing them into the back of vans. We saw them shooting less than lethals at press and had many conversations about it. We've been having conversations about police accountability forever in this space. But last year, for me, it was the most clearest when we submitted 22 motions to get LAPD to do something, anything other than look like they were enabling federal immigration enforcement, and the BPC gave us nothing. I organized meetings with council members and the BPC. We talked about the motions several times, and we still got nothing. And we need to make these changes. This change, number 22, doesn't even change the law. It brings accountability and clarity to existing law. We're not even changing the law, just bringing clarity to it. And if it wasn't for what I saw last year, I wouldn't be fighting so hard for it. And people might say, well, why didn't you go to the mayor with this? Why didn't you talk to the people about this? We tried, and we hit concrete wall after concrete wall. And that's why this change is so important. It doesn't even change the law. It just provides clarity for BPC and other entities to know that this body can make policy recommendations that are general. We're not even talking about individual cases. We're not even talking about staffing assignments, operational tactics. We're not talking about that. Though that would be, I understand, would be more problematic if we were trying to meddle in that. That's not what we're trying to do. I'm just trying to bring clarity to the law that exists that says as a body, we can draft policy for a department. We already handle all the liability costs, their budget, and to not be able to say, we want to see you give us a response at least for this policy recommendation, if we can't even get that, I think this is all bullshit, because last year was incredibly difficult. And not to get a response from them, I don't know what else it's gonna take to get PPC to move. I really don't. This is simple. We're not changing the law, we're just writing clarifying language. So I would urge my colleagues, please vote yes. And I guarantee you that it will pass, because people out there want police accountability. They want it. They tell us every day when they're here, they tell us in the budget, we get calls, DMs, everything. It will pass. So colleagues, please, I urge you, just give the voters an opportunity to bring clarity to a law that already exists. Thank you.
Councilmember Price.
I couldn't be more eloquent. Let me just say that I agree with the Councilwoman, and the motion, I think, is a start. It's not going to solve all the problems, but it is a start, and it shows that we're trying to be responsive, and so I totally support it.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you. Ms. Hernandez, totally understand your anger and frustration and what it's borne by. And I understand the the feeling of there's non-responsiveness. I too have submitted multiple motions seeking the chief of police to come back and have a conversation with us. It's been tone deaf, for lack of a better word. I understand where this frustration and anger comes from. We've seen a lot of those things. But I will also say, we need to have accountability about how we manage and exercise and affect change utilizing the powers that we currently have. And that is in exercising through the budget. In terms of helping to ensure, because for me, reform has always been a continuum. I've never looked at what we've achieved in terms of reform as being, we're done. Reform is a continuum. It's an exercise that we constantly do because there's a continued evolution in how we respond to the dynamics that we are presented with in each of our communities. However, I do have concerns with how this is currently presented. And what I'd like to see is the opportunity for us, and I know I did this both in my role on budget and also as public safety chair, was getting the report backs of the reforms and the changes that we wanted to see pending before allowing release of funds. There are tools that we have in our tool belt right now to help achieve some of the very things that you want to do. And I understand your anger and frustration. We also serve as a role to confirm each one of those commissioners, and we also have the role in confirming the chief of police. And so if we want to have these conversations and we want to do, like, let's go. But I believe we do have the tools and the authority right now to help effectuate that change. And I understand, but I'm also trying to strike the proper balance of power in the roles that we have with how it's addressed in the charter.
Thank you, and I hear you, and in a perfect world, it would work like that. But in this world, this body voted to give $1 billion in raises to LAPD, even when we knew we were gonna be broke, and we did that. This body reduced police hiring, and what happened? They went around us and they hired anyways. We do have mechanisms, and they go around us, or they ignore us. This is not changing the law on 22. It's just bringing clarity to the law so that everybody knows, including BPC, that we can author policy. That's it. That's from my understanding. If the city attorney wants to come up and say differently, but it's my understanding that that is the law, and we just need clarity on it. We need to continue to have these conversations. But in this body, in this the political will does not exist for what you're saying. And why am I saying that? Because we keep running into walls when we have tried. So I wish it was like what you're saying, but it's not. I'm just trying to give the voters an opportunity to make the language clear. It's not changing the law. It's just bringing clarity to the law that already exists for number 22. I'm not talking about the others. I'm just saying 22.
Councilmember Soto Martinez.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the conversation that we're having, and this is exactly why I'm very supportive of this. This is one of my top priorities of all the things that are being discussed in the Charter Reform Commission. And when you talk to folks out there that work in the legal world, they will tell you that City Council does have the ability to do policy. That's the legal opinion of many people. That's what I believe. That's what other council members here believe. That is what I believe is true, and many people believe is true. However, we've been told by different entities to say, yes, we do have. The city attorney says, no, you don't have it. Other folks say you do have it. And so we have to clarify that. We have to clarify that. That's it. And so I want to thank Councilmember McCosker for working with my team and I on this language to try to bring clarity to the law. And I believe that clarity is needed. I know, Councilwoman Rodriguez, I appreciate your passion, but I remember you asking for reports on overtime and getting a 3-page document that didn't have all the information. Always pulling teeth in public safety. We see our liabilities ballooning, yet we can't have changes over how we can try to lower those liabilities. The overtime of LAPD is $200 million a year, yet we don't have a say over how that overtime is authorized or not. We keep hitting these walls. And what ends up happening? we end up paying for it in different ways. And I just want to be clear that this reform does not put the city council in charge of individual investigations, and it does not put the city council in charge of hiring, firing, or discipline. It simply clarifies that elected officials like us may establish general policy for the department they're expected to fund, oversee, and answer for. That is consistent with what decades of reform we've been moving to. That's accountability, transparency, and public safety policy that is responsive to the people of Los Angeles. And I want to sort of echo the clarion call from Councilmember Hernandez. Of all the things I mentioned, the ballooning liabilities, unable to change anything, how LAPD has interacted with First Amendment protesters, the pretextual stops that happen every single day in our Black and brown communities. But all those should already say, you know what, this body should be able to do something about those things. Those are urgent things that our families and members deal with every single day. But the one for me that broke the camel's back was when the federal government came in here and I, as a council member, was driving around my district telling street vendors, hey, you have the right to remain silent, you have to do anything. And what did I see? LAPD driving around like nothing had happened. You mean to tell me they couldn't get on their bullhorn and tell the public, hey, ICE is in the area, you have the right to remain silent, you have the right not to sign any document? You mean to tell me that we couldn't even do that? They were showing up to unmarked vehicles, mostly men with masks, unidentified, and we did nothing? I'm sorry, but that's pathetic. And Councilmember Hernandez is correct. We had the meetings with then the president of the commission, urging him to do something, not a peep. We had more meetings, not a peep. And then guess what happened? He left. He was gone. And we're having to all over again try to convince the Board of Police Commissioner to do something. And a year has passed by and not a thing has happened. And how can all of us here, who say we believe in all the right things and immigrants and all these other stuff, and you're going to sit here and say, this remain the status quo? That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable for this body to do. And so all we're saying is, let's stop allowing this charter to be interpreted by an individual, by the city attorney one way and maybe the future city attorney another way. Let's stop that game. And let's put the decision-making power, the accountability, in the people who are elected to represent them. That's us. Put it in our power. Make it clear. And so I don't understand the concerns, but this is at a crossroads. We're at a crossroads as a city. And I appreciate the history lessons of the 80s and 90s. You know what? I lived through it. As a young brown man in South Central, I lived it. And many of us still live it. But we are living in 2026, and we haven't done anything for our people in the last year and a half, even since the George Floyd uprising. So let's do something about it. Let's clarify the charter. Let's give this body the power so when things like this happen, we can actually do something and not leave it to some legal interpretation. Thank you so much. I urge a aye vote.
Mr. Lee.
I just want to make a clarification because it's been said over and over again that this does not change law. This does change the charter. Okay, this is not a clarifying. This changes the charter of fundamentally taking away the citizens' oversight and putting it in the hands of the politicians. So just everyone, I'm sure you've made your decision on how to vote, but I don't want you to be misled that this does not change the law, because it absolutely does.
And do we have a city attorney present who can speak to this question?
Thank you, Council President Mike Dundas, City Attorney's Office.
And Mr. Dundas, if you could comment on both 54 and 56, the 245 and the ordinance piece.
Sure.
In regard to current law versus what's being proposed.
Well, with respect to 56, it's a more straightforward question. The proposal from the Charter Reform Commission that's before the council today would change what is currently what we refer to as the 245 power, which is the power of the city council to review the actions of the boards, the various boards in the city of Los Angeles. For almost all of the boards in the city, including the Board of Police Commissioners, the council's power under Charter Section 245 is to veto that action and send it back to the board for reconsideration. So please.
Sorry to interrupt. I don't want there to be, this is such a sensitive, I don't want there to be confusion. The thing we're discussing is CRC 54.
Well,
I know, I just want to be clear. So you're now switching to a different issue.
I was going to get to that second.
Okay,
He
good.
asked me about both. He asked me about both proposals. That's the only reason I was answering this. I was just getting rid of the other one first, so we can have a longer conversation about the second one. This proposal in Charter Reform Commission section number 56 would then give this council the power not just to veto them, but if the commission didn't accept the policy sort of direction that was being given implicitly by the veto, and it came back to the council again, the council then could step into the shoes and actually move the policy itself without needing the board to take any action, just like you currently have with Charter Section 245E in the planning department. So that is a change moving from a veto power only to a policy-making power in Charter Section 245. With respect to CRC 54, as Councilmember Soto Martinez was talking about, and Councilmember Hernandez and Councilmember Lee were addressing, what our opinion is of this is that it would not change the law on the moment that it was enacted. What it would do is give the city council the power to set policy going forward in the future that would then bind the LAPD to specific policy actions. So there is no immediate change to anything that would be done unless council takes further action to implement a new policy by ordinance. But yes. Yeah.
Councilmember McCosker, you're being called upon. Yeah, you kind of said both, but Councilmember McCosker.
Well, I think it's important to look at language. And it began at 54, I'm just talking about 54 now.
Yeah.
Nothing in this section shall limit any authority of the council otherwise conferred by this charter. So we're talking about the council authority. When you look at the council authority under the council sections, it describes the full range of what legislative and some executive power, by the way, what governing power the city council has. And those sections don't exclude the policy setting even for the police department. So, and then it says, and no inference shall be drawn from this section restricting the subjects. So it's not a grant. It's saying there is no restriction upon the subjects with which the council may legislate, including its authority establishing the policy of the police department. It's not saying we're giving you new authority over the police department. They're saying the council shall retain the powers conferred to it by this charter. When one looks at the sections of the police department management, you see first the police commission, and the police commission has important authority, Christopher Commission granted authority, or inspired authority, to direct the chief. And the chief in the subsequent sections has authority over all operations to quell violence and stop riots and do all the things to implement all of the ordinances which we adopt, or the state legislature adopts. And so I think I'm just underscoring what you just said, that this section says nothing in this section shall limit the authority of the council otherwise conferred by this charter. And even if this was acted upon, it would be powers that the council has as the governing body of the city. But let's say I'm going to go back to my most important issue, and that's how do we treat personnel in the city, and how do we follow the Myers-Milius-Brown. If there is some enactment post-adoption of this language, should the people so choose to adopt this language, and it gets added to the charter, and then we exercise that authority, and it impacts workers on wages, hours, or working conditions, then we would engage in Myers-Milius-Brown. Now, I went down a path, a very specific path. But I think it's important to note that this language says nothing in this section limits the authority of the council otherwise conferred by this charter, which is a broad authority of the city council as the governing body of the city of Los Angeles to enact policy. So I'm agreeing with you, although you had a little caveat there. And I don't see how this changes existing law and powers in the city of Los Angeles.
All right. Any other discussion on this item? We're on number 54. Members, we had a robust conversation on this issue and really appreciate the work of Councilmember Soto Martinez and Hernandez on this issue, and Mr. McCosker as well. I had trouble with this one in committee. I voted against it, and the yes votes prevailed. And I just want to share with everybody, I totally hear and have a lot of things I could add to the examples that Councilmember Hernandez and Soto Martinez made, up to and including the chief going on television and saying he wasn't going to follow state law, and doing so without any fear that there was going to be any reprisal for that statement. But I was a teenager in the city when the council had full control of the police department. I lived through that. And I was old enough to be riding around in cars with other kids. And riding from one part of the city to the other was one of the ways I learned about council districts as a kid, was how the police were when you went from one council district to another. You remember that, Councilwoman Hutt. So I get extremely nervous the more authority this council asserts over the operations of the police department, and I'll be a no on this and yes on others, but again, not because I think anything that has been raised today is not valid, not pertinent. But this is my life experience. I remember Mayor Bradley trying to get the police department to behave, and it was fruitless. Like it meant nothing, because when they were in so-and-so's district, that's how they operated. And then when they were in a district, which I lived in a district that never had the support of either the chief or the police union. And the police department treated us that way. And there wasn't really any recourse that you had at that time, or at least that appeared to be the case. And so, again, I will be a no on this, understanding the strong sentiment forward, and we'll look forward to the next item. Councilmember McCosker.
Just on a point of order, I just want to ask about the motion that I made at the outset that Soto Martinez seconded, and that was to direct the city attorney to give us a confidential analysis of the scope and the need to meet and confer on this issue, because I think there is a difference of opinion between the bargaining group and the CAO, and we need the city attorney to weigh in on that. And I will also say that will be a dispositive issue for me, because I'm not going to be interested in putting things on the ballot if they had to be met and conferred upon, and we're not. I'm not saying I know the answer to it. Is that going to be considered at the same time as we vote in a minute?
Yeah, I think if Mr. Soto Martinez is fine, we can consider it friendly and look at those things together. All right. So let's open the roll on Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say that I appreciate your comments, but again, item number 22 doesn't give us more authority. It just clears up existing law. That's it. So we're not getting more authority. That's it.
Got it. All right.
I urge an aye vote, please, colleagues.
All right. Councilmember Hernandez urges aye vote. Public Safety Chairperson Lee urges a no vote. Let's open the roll on this item. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes, 4 noes.
All right. There you go. Mr. Lee? Huh?
You changed my vote. I meant to vote no.
Mr. Hernandez, Councilmember Hernandez has moved for no takebacks. So we'll change, we'll record Mr. Lee as a no vote on this item and move to our next item.
Just to confirm, that would be 10 ayes and 5 noes. Does not change the outcome.
All right. What's next?